You're listening to Cash and Sass. I'm Lisa Marie, your go-to gal for all things money. As the Sassy Wealth Queen and the brains behind the Sassy Wealth Coach, I'm here to take you on a thrilling ride from the financial chaos to sassy and sexy money. Welcome back, my sassy friend, to another episode of Cash and Sass. My name is Lisa Marie. I am the Sassy Wealth Queen and the brains behind this podcast, and of course, the Sassy Wealth Coach. And today with me, I have Scott Ritzheimer. Did I say that right? Because I
Ritzheimer,
did not
yeah.
ask. Ritzheimer. Yay, I got it right. Okay. And Scott has helped nearly 20,000 new businesses and nonprofits. And with his business partner, they led their multi-million-dollar business through an exceptional and extended growth phase, which was over 10 years of double-digit growth, all before he turned 35. Today, he helps founders and CEOs identify and implement the one essential strategy they need right now to get them on the fast track to predictable success, and has just released his new book, The Founder's Evolution: Conquering the Journey Every Founder Must Face. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for being on my podcast. And of course, as we all know, Cash and Sass means we're going to have candid conversations about money, anything and everything to do with money. And the one thing that I love about what I was looking at beforehand, and I want to dive deep into that, is just how business owners having joy. So, joy for business owners doesn't come from reaching financial milestones. I think that's huge because it means it doesn't come from receiving more and more money. And I would love for you to go deeper into that so that we can just discuss what exactly does bring joy and how that relates to money. Because so often, so many entrepreneurs, myself included, when we first start, we think the more money we receive, the happier we're going to be. And that's not actually the case. It's also what I teach my clients, is that it needs to be aligned with their values, their goals, and their desires in order to actually truly be happy. So, what do you mean by that?
We'll talk business in a second, but let me start with a personal story where I actually found
Okay.
this. So, in the bio, it talks about 35. 35 was a big year for me. A bunch of stuff happened. But it was most notable in the sense that we adopted our third child, our little girl. And I kind of had a choice that I needed to make. So rewind the tape 10 years when we had our first, my son, and I was 25 years old. I was going 1,000 miles an hour in business, and I wasn't like not there, but I didn't really know what to do with him. I remember we brought him home, and it's kind of like, now what? Mom's got all of it figured out. Like, this is amazing for her, and or at least she had things that she could do that seemed to work, right? I was just kind of in the way, and
I was going to say, we make it
yeah,
look
yeah,
like we
yeah.
have it all figured out. For all the moms out there, I promise you, we all agree we do not have it all figured out.
And so, like, her world changed so much for our first son, and for me, it was a little like, I love him to pieces. I think he's really cool. I have no idea what to do with him. Give him back when he's like 2, 3 years old. We can play with the ball. We'll have the time of our life. And so I didn't love him any less, but I couldn't say that I had experienced an enormous amount of joy with him in the first couple of years of his life. Fast forward 2 years, his brother was born. Kind of same thing, right? It was like, give them back when they can throw a ball. Not proud of that. It's just the truth. And again, I wasn't distant. It wasn't like I was gone or anything like that. I wasn't showing up in the way that I could. And fast forward another 8 years, and a whole lot of life and death and everything else in between happened in our family. And um, I remember we were bringing our daughter Isabel home. It was this really weird experience because it was during COVID. And so we actually exchanged a baby in a parking lot, like at the adoption age. It was just really weird, surreal experience. And so we had
Mhm.
found out 3 days before, just everything about our world was changing all at once. And I have this beautiful little girl in my hands, and I decided I wasn't going to do it again, right? Like, I wasn't going to miss those first 2 years. And so I still, 10 years later, I would hope I was a little bit smarter, a little bit wiser, still didn't quite have an idea what to do, but it was fine. That's just part of the process. And so we read so many books. I fell asleep on her floor next to her bed more times than I can count. My wife would take pictures of the baby monitor, of just me in all kinds of random positions on the floor sleeping. And I mean, can I tell you, I experienced more joy in those first 2 years of her life than in maybe the 20 before that. And the only thing that changed was me. Right? The only thing that was
Mhm,
different was me, and I had set myself to do it. And so what we find is in life and in business, fulfillment does not come from a destination, right? And we're not even talking about money yet, right? I'm just talking about the
mhm,
destination of an age where somehow my fatherhood would be amazing, right? It doesn't come from these milestones. We set up these arbitrary lines somewhere out in the future and say, when we get there, I'll be okay. When such and such happens, I'll be fine. And then, there might be wonderful things about that. There's wonderful things about a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old. It's an amazing season, right? Uh, but that doesn't mean that there aren't wonderful things now. And no matter
mhm.
how hard, and we as a family have been through some really tough seasons, no matter how hard those are, there's something beautiful right here in the moment. And so that hit home for me, and it was just if that's true here, it's probably true just about everywhere. And as I started looking, we'll tie this to the business world, for entrepreneurs and money and all of that. You ask someone, "What's your vision for your company?" What's one of the number one things they're going to say? They're going to give you some kind of number, right? I want to be $1 million company. I want to be a $10 million company. I want to be $1 billion company. Doesn't matter what the number is. It's completely arbitrary. There's absolutely nothing different. So, another just quick story to kind of illustrate this. I once did something very stupid. I ran a half marathon. I am not an endurance athlete. It's just not my cup of tea. And it was when our kids were young, and so my wife stayed home, and I went down into Atlanta and ran the race. And because parking and traffic are crazy, and she wasn't there, I took the train into town and back out of town. And that was a great idea until I ran 13 miles. The last three and a half, three and change were like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever done. And I took a step across the finish line and there was nothing different, right? I still had to walk 2 miles to the train station afterwards. There's, and if that can happen in something as physical and tangible as crossing the finish line, that same thing can happen if we cross these kind of, lines that we draw across the street in the middle of Atlanta, across the street of our business. And so there have been so many times. I had one of the CEOs I was working with. He was so excited. They just had their first $1 million profit, right? Not $1 million revenue, $1 million profit. And he barely got that out of his mouth. And he said, I've got to now figure out how to pay a $400,000 tax bill. And it's like, one, we can get into and dispute the tax strategy around that. But the fact of it is that with all of that, money comes more responsibility and more headache and more, everything, more complexity. And
Well, you have to, yeah, you have to be strategic and plan for those
right,
things,
right.
yes.
And so again, getting away from the efficacy of his tax strategy and just looking at the personal impact of that, it here's the truth. Businesses get bigger, they don't get better. Right? Just because your business got bigger doesn't mean that the challenges go away. They change and in many
No,
cases they get bigger, right?
they
And
yes.
so I'll sit with folks who are 10, 20, 15, years into the process. They've had a ton of success. They're leading a company that's over multiple states, nine-figure business. And they'll look back and be like, man, I wish it was like those days when it was just me and a handful of people. And then a couple calls later, I'll be talking with someone who's newer on the journey. It's them and a handful of people, and they're bootstrapping it, and they have no idea how they're going to succeed, but they're going to find a way. And they're like, I don't know if I can keep doing this, right? I wish I just had the resources that someone else did. And so, no matter where you are in that cycle, if you're trying to find joy in a place other than where you are in that cycle, you're going to be left short. You're going to be disappointed. And and
Mhm.
so then the question is, okay, what do we do, right? The first one is obviously we look for the joy that's available to us. Now, the really cool thing about that is that that's a concrete, real thing. That's not just like a metaphysical, like be happy kind of. There are literal things that are joyful about every single stage in this process. So in the book, we lay out
Mhm.
all 7 stages, and for each stage, I identify one, not all of, but just one key thing that you can experience at that stage that you actually can't experience to the same degree in another stage. And so there's very, very practical ways that this shows up in our everyday life, that can bring us so much joy and so much more fulfillment in every stage of the process, rather than trying to put that on hold for 5, 10, or 15 years until we get to X.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it reminds me of a quote and something my coach would always say, the joy and the happiness is in the journey, not the
Yeah.
destination. So when we put it on the destination, the issue with that is when we get to that destination, oh well, now we've got to reach a new destination. So we keep putting the joy and the happiness off until all of a sudden we realize, oh shit, I'm I don't know 80 and I was not enjoying life. And so I always remind myself, am I enjoying what I'm doing? Which the answer is yes, I love what I do. And am I finding joy in where I'm at?
Yeah.
Now, sometimes, yes, my assessment that is very, very, um, a lot more difficult to do sometimes when you're in the thick of things with your business or your personal life. And it also comes back to what I've talked about thousands of times, and all of y'all know this gratitude and that joy in the moment helps boost that energy field to where you're being open
Yes.
to receive even more, which again we discuss money is nothing but energy. It's energy. I will be honest, I want to be a seven figure I desire to be a seven figure business owner. The reason why is because my mission with my business is to change as many women's lives as possible and to make a bigger impact by giving back to do that. And in order for me to do that, more money will need to be flowing in,
Yeah.
desire to be flowing in so I can do that.
Yes.
And so that's where finding that true
Yes.
mission and passion is not just saying, "Oh, I want to have a seven-figure business just to make more
Yes.
money," because then you're just going to be
That's
miserable.
100% right.
And I agree, right? Finding that joy. Um
Hey,
and what I love about your story is how, with your daughter that you adopted, you did the thing, and you realize this, you did the thing that you should have done, could have done with your first two sons, which is basically just simply be
yes.
there, and just lay on the floor and let them drool on you, throw up on you, and all the other things
All
that
of
they
them.
do.
Yes.
All of them. The wild pictures that I have with my 2 girls is insane. And, and because, I can remember my 21-year-old being born like it was yesterday, and it also seems like a
Yeah.
lifetime ago, all at the same time. And it just reminds us how quickly time
Yes.
passes. And what you're saying is make sure you're enjoying what you're
Yes.
doing and where you're at in your life and your
Yes.
business, because tomorrow it won't be here. You have a new
Yep.
day. And I'm going to add a caveat to that don't go beat yourself up about what you didn't do
Yes.
yesterday or the day before. Today's a new day. Tomorrow morning is a new day.
Yeah.
Start. It comes back to I just recorded another podcast with someone, and it was all about it starts with a decision. And this is basically the same thing.
Yes.
It starts with a decision on finding the joy of where you're
Yes.
at so that you're enjoying, right? The process of owning your own business. Because y'all, having a business is not easy. He's right. The bigger you get, the longer you've been in business, the more things pop up, and there's bigger I don't know. I call them hiccups. I don't call them issues anymore. I call them hiccups because to me, hiccups is I had to change the word because issues would play with my mindset. And so I say hiccups. So they're bigger
Yeah.
hiccups. And sometimes they're longer lasting
Yeah.
hiccups, unfortunately. And it's how you deal with
Mhm.
them, right?
I want to go back to because you laid out something that is really really important for folks, and that is that um, your vision for your company determines the size of the company that's appropriate, right? We do that backwards all the time. We say, okay, here's this. I better have a vision that adds up to that. And what ends up happening is it gets harder and harder to find the joy in the moment when you move further and further from what you should be doing. Right. And so, for example, if you have a vision to make the best cup of coffee, or even better, you have a vision to build a place in your community where folks can come together, and you do that around coffee, and it takes off and it's awesome, and people say, hey, we want more of your coffee, and they want you to add a drive through, so you add a drive through, and then they're going through the drive through and you don't really see them anymore, and then they want another location on the other side of town, and you open another location on the other side of town, and you're making more and more money, you're hiring more and more people, there are more and more people getting coffee. but,
But it's away from your
but what are
vision
you
and your
doing?
goals and your desires.
Exactly. And so there's this whole conversation in some circles around how big is too big, right? What's the right size company? And the truth is, the size of company is nothing more than a tool to accomplish the vision that you have in front of you. And it's why the very first step I take with a client is we've got to be clear on what your vision is for this company, and we may even have to go back to what it was when you started, right? Because you may have along the way inadvertently borrowed someone else's vision for your company, and you're building that.
Oh,
You might even be successful in building that, and it could kill you.
because you're miserable and you're not doing it
Yes.
aligned with your goals, values, and desires. Are y'all listening? Because I swear I say this to like, I repeat it on every day. Like, I'm a fractional CFO and a wealth coach. Okay. That's why they call me the sassy wealth queen. And I say it on repeat. And, many fractional CFOs go, oh, it doesn't matter. You just need to tell them how to manage the money. No, because if they're miserable, or they're and you can tell they're miserable by their actions and the way they're talking and the way they're seeing things. If that's the case, then I'm going to intervene and say, okay, we need to take a look. And that's the reason why when I work with my clients and I help six figures and seven figures owners build this money roadmap, and sometimes they'll be like, oh, but I'm not broke. I don't need a money roadmap. Yes, you do. And here's why. Because with this money roadmap, I'm going to also be getting your values, your goals, and your desires. And we're going to make sure everything that you're doing with that money is
Yes.
aligned. Because if it's not, whether that's how you're earning it, how you're spending it, you're basically heading yourself in- on this hamster wheel of trying to figure out why you're
Yeah.
miserable, but you're having so much success, or you're going to burn yourself out, or you're going to end up hating your business. And you know, and I know this because I was doing some things out of alignment, and it wasn't I was hating my business. It was just I was
Yeah.
tired and I was getting burnt
Yeah.
out, and I I had a friend who stopped and asked me the question I ask my clients and the women I work with, and all of a sudden I went, "Oh, shit. I need to sit down and take my own medicine."
Yeah.
I needed to sit down and look, and that's so I did. I looked, and it's like an internal audit of what makes me happy, and I did what you're talking about. I had to go
Yeah.
back to what that mission and vision was at the very beginning. Yes, it's shifted, but that core is still there. And that whole core for me is working from wherever I want to be, mainly at home, so that I'm here for my
Yeah.
girls. I don't want to have to clock in. I want to have to that's the vision. And then from there, I my big vision is to impact as many women's lives as possible, changing their outcomes so that the way we look at money and our relationship with money and how we manage it, we can give back and make an impact and change
Yeah.
the world. That's a big, huge vision. Okay, is what I'm doing aligned with it? And the answer was
Right.
no. And so I had to get back into alignment. And it when you do that and you spend your day in alignment, it doesn't seem nearly as
No.
stressful.
And it,
You seem so much
well,
happier.
yeah, and here's the truth too. The answer is not always ahead of you. right? A lot of times we
No,
think, hey, I've
no.
got to get to the next level, right? I hear that
Mhm.
all the time. First off, nobody knows what the next level is. And for most folks, if they knew what the next level was, they wouldn't be asking for it because it comes with the challenges of its own. But it's kind of like when you're sitting on an airplane and they say, look for the closest exit, sometimes it might be behind you, right? So often, the correct answer is to actually go back a step, right? You've actually worked yourself out
Slow
of
slow
joy.
slow
Yeah.
slow down to speed up. My coach's favorite
Yeah.
saying is sometimes you need to slow down in order to speed
Yeah.
up
And
because we go that full rabbit race and we don't slow down
yes.
to smell the
Yes.
roses. There's another say I know we've all heard that growing up. You need to slow down so you can smell the roses. It's the same concept. Slow down, eh, take a breath, slow
Yeah.
down, look behind you, and you're doing that in order to speed up in your
Yeah.
growth. Yeah.
So often, in addition to sometimes needing to take that step back, I would say more often than any other situation, it's just learning to understand the stage that you're in right now. Right. And learning
Mhm.
to navigate the stage that you're in right now. Because as type A, most of my work is with founders, entrepreneurs. It's just go and make it happen, right? Almost by definition, you are the type of person who does what people say can't be done, right? And so if I go in and say, hey, you can't do this, it's not going to work, right? So
I'm the type of person that's going to say,
yeah.
"Watch me."
And so that has so many beautiful things were created because of that, right? So many
Sure.
things that couldn't be done are now done every single day because of that. Not just in the world of work, but all across all kinds of different settings. But the downside to that is just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? Uh, and so what we've got to understand is how we achieve success through these different stages, particularly in the world of business. Nonprofits is true as well, but for this audience in the world of business, that changes over time. And so if your vision is such that you have to change with it, right? You can change. You've proven that you can do what may look like it's impossible to a lot of other folks. But if you don't have a compelling vision for that, or if you don't understand what you actually have to change to get to that vision, you're setting yourself up for a significant amount of frustration.
Yeah, because sometimes, sharing my story is, this past we I just celebrated 8 years on October 17th. Um and the 7th year was a difficult year and I didn't realize all the reasons that um the things were happening for me, not to me. They were happening for me, and I didn't realize what all the reasons were. And the universe is literally trying to slap me in the face. Um, it's funny. I see it now. I didn't see it then. I wish I would have seen it then. And I don't think I would have done as much of the deep healing and
Mm,
growth that needed to be done, taking a step back. At when we're that go, 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 and we're going to prove you wrong, the one of the things we forget to do is our self care ends up going to the bottom, and that's one of the things that I have worked on constantly, still work in progress, but I work on constantly not to do that, to remind myself to slow down, to make sure I'm slowing down, to one, have the self care, and two, to look around and say, okay, is it aligned? Is this where I'm wanting to go? And also to receive the message. Because, like
yeah.
you said, sometimes when you stop, you need to turn around and look because there were things the universe was trying to throw at you that you were missing because you were speeding by
Yep.
it. Um, and that was my case this past year. And, and my coach, he love him. He put his foot up my ass in a lovingly way to make me realize that's what I was
Right.
doing. And the moment I realized that and I stopped, it all became
Right.
clear. Like, and I don't mean instantly. I mean, oh, wait, okay, let me do this. Let me look. And then within the next 48 hours, oh, crap. Okay, that's what this
Yes.
was. Okay. And then you're able to dive deeper into that and say, okay, what does this mean for me? And, that's the beauty of having coaches. That's the beauty of having fractional CFOs when it comes to the money part and having coaches with your business, having someone like you with the business, because then you're able to voice all those things. I call it voice vomit. I just all out so that then someone can who's not on in the thick of it can then look and help you see the bigger
Yes.
picture and help you strategize what else is coming
Yes.
through from that. And then you're able to move forward and grow, and for the longest time I didn't want to be a seven-figure business owner. And I realized I was capping myself and telling the universe I was capping myself, which was also self sabotaging myself. Didn't realize that, but then I did. And I was like, oh. And when I looked at it, but I want to make this type of impact, clear answer was, okay, can you do it with the amount of revenue you're saying you're okay with making? And I was like, no. Then why are you capping yourself? You're not looking at the whole big
Yeah.
picture. And even as a fractional CFO, I do the same thing. Again, we go speedy and we don't slow down to look. And I so it just it's I tell my clients all the time, I walk my walk, I talk my talk. And if I make sure I'm listening and doing my own advice. And I also have a coach who
Yeah.
helps me stay and see the picture. And I just think it's really important, that joy comes with that alignment in those values and goals and desires,
Yes.
right? And truly, truly honoring where you're at in your
Yes.
business, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's
And
it's really helpful because you can kind of lay each of these things down. We've talked about if you don't know where you're going, it's very difficult to find joy in that at all, right? So, but let's say you're really clear on your destination. Then the next thing is, do I understand where I am and how I have to succeed now to move toward that destination? Let's say you've got that, and you still wake up on a Monday morning and you're fit to be tied, right? Like you're angry as a hornet. You don't know why. Uh, the other element that you've added to this that's really important for folks is it might just be some of the basics. Did you sleep well? Have you been eating well? Have you been exercising? Have you been giving yourself the time that you need? That basic stuff, like as entrepreneurs, we like to think we're invincible, right? We like to think we're 12 foot tall and invincible. And it's just not true. And so if you're sitting there saying, hey, I know where I'm going, I know what I need to do now, and I'm still mad as a hornet, it could be something as simple as just, your daily routine. It could be something as simple as, just taking some of these steps that you've talked about. And what's so nice about having a coach is the speed to clarity that you can get on that, right? And-
that right
Yes.
there. And and I'm going to even put it back to you. Sometimes it's something as simple as laying on the floor in your child's
Yes.
room. Are you spending time with your children? Are you having
Yes.
fun? Because, that's one of the things that was brought to me by another mentor is like, Lisa, are you having fun? And so many of my clients will say, oh, I'll have fun
Right.
when. No, 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 no. And I've also had to remind myself, no, no, and no. You're never going to have it then because when that gets here, you're going to be going so fast you're not even going to
Yep.
realize it. Have have some fun
Yeah.
now. Because and go lay on the floor, play with your kids. Are you exercising? Are you taking care of your health? Are you going for a walk? I mean, with y'all yesterday, I'll admit it, I got a little overwhelmed. I went and sat outside on the grass and just looked up and just breathed the fresh air in. That for 5 minutes, it did
Yeah.
wonders. I didn't do it very long because it's getting cold. And it did wonders because it's just sometimes you've just got to interrupt
Yeah.
the program, I guess, so to speak, and just sit and breathe. And, I was going to ask when you have someone who says, okay, I want to make these changes, and they have, like you said, they know their mission, they know they know where their vision is. Okay, now I know what I need to do. What is something um, that normally holds them back from seeing that joy, and what's something they can just something simple, tangible that they can do other than what we've said already, right? But the one thing that you would recommend they do so that they can start moving forward in
Yeah.
that.
You talked about gratitude earlier, and one of the best exercises I've seen, it's really, really simple, is to sit down and just make a quick list of what would you miss if you didn't have it,
Ooh.
right? Let's just start with air conditioning. Like your air conditioning goes down in the middle of the summer, right? And you've got an opportunity to see what you're grateful for the rest of the time, the rest of the year. But make a list. Do this inside your business, right? Your employees may drive you crazy some days, right? But where would you be without them? You might have a client or two that drives you crazy. Where would you be without them? But uh, your home life, your work life, all of those things. Just take a look around you from your desk, wherever you are right now. What are you thankful for? And if you're struggling, it can be as simple as electricity and running water and fast internet, right?
Well, I was gonna say my first one besides electricity is, because without electricity, you don't have an AC unit. So, um, my my first one is also being able to have running water inside my house, and I can go stand in a
Yeah.
shower.
And that sounds trivial. It sounds simple, but it
Mm,
changes the chemical makeup of your brain, right? Especially
mhm.
when you do this habitually, few minutes a day, and just, hey, what would I miss if I didn't have it? Right? And then if you want to add to that, when you're frustrated with something, you're frustrated with an employee, you have a fight with your spouse, what would I miss about them if they weren't here? Right? Because we'll go and we'll sit on it, we'll stew on it, and we'll do all of these things. You can turn all of that around. You can transform your entire day by just stopping to think, hey, what would I miss about them? I mean, I can't remember, I think it was my grandma or something like that. One time, she used to complain about my grandpa snoring all the time, right? And a few weeks after he passed, she said, I miss his snoring. So if we can be thankful for snoring, or, you can be thankful for just about everything, and that's a lesson for all of us. I mean, even the frustrating things of life are usually tied to something we can be deeply appreciative if we just take the time to think about it.
Mhm. Very much so. And on a personal level, I'll share a little small story so listeners can even understand further. My daughter, her grampy, was my father-in-law. He he infuriated me. He infuriated me. I loved him to pieces. He passed away several years ago. He infuriated me. My oldest daughters, before we knew she was autistic, but we knew she had ADHD. And he would take her to the gas station 7:30 at night, and he would get her a big, huge cup of boiled peanuts and a icy. And I'm talking about a Coca-Cola icy, not a small one, a big one. And I'm like, at 7 o'clock, are you insane? And I'm like, she's never gonna go to bed. And his answer was, okay, she can just stay with me. You are missing the point. And we'd battle about it. And I found out after he passed away that he would always take her there. And then on their way to South Carolina State University, where he was a professor. And just so y'all understand, he taught physics. Okay. My level of brain does not go that high in the elevator. It just doesn't. But he taught physics and biology. And, so he was awesome with arithmetic and algebra and all those things and science. And on their way, because we live in Columbia, South Carolina, he lived in Columbia, South Carolina too. So he would drive to Orangeburg, South Carolina every day. And for concept, for anyone who's watching that, that's about an hour drive one
Wow.
way, about hour, 15 minutes one way every day. Did it for 30 something years. My daughter during the summer would go with him, right? And now during the school year, she didn't. Okay. And it was a school year that I was fussing at him. But what I found out was is when they do this and they would take their drive, whether it was to Orangeburg or around, as they're driving, he would point out different plants and different things on the outside. And that's how she fell in love with, of all things, frogs and the grass and the plants and
Wow.
all these things. And so she was being educated too, right? Now, of course, I didn't find this out until later. And it still infuriated me. He wouldn't listen to me as the mother. Please don't give my child full on sugar at 7 o'clock at night. Okay. Even if they don't have ADHD, they should not have that much sugar at 7 o'clock at night. Their little bodies, they just shouldn't have it. She never went to bed on time when she did. And he's been gone now for 8
Mm.
years, and I pretty much would do anything to have him
Yeah.
back just so he can infuriate
Yeah.
me with that icy and have that,
Yes.
and I know my daughter would. They were each other's second skin, my oldest, and just, thinking back, like, "Okay, I want him here just so I can bitch at him." But to have that opportunity to have
Mm.
that infuriating conversation,
Yeah.
right? It You're right. It puts a whole new perspective on things when you say, "What would I miss if that person
Yeah.
wasn't here?" And it it just enjoy life, enjoy the
Mm.
moment. Whatever you're at in your business, I promise, no matter how much you grow, I'm 8 years in, you're still going to have hiccups and problems and caveats that you've got to navigate. They don't just stop when you hit a certain number. As I've told people, life is not prejudice. It really doesn't care how much money you got or how much money you don't. Life just happens. And it's how we react and us how we live our lives is what
Yes.
determines, um, how we go through it,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's just this. I say it's as simple as that, but it is. It's as simple as that. And I'm sure there have been times you have to remind yourself of this too, because you're human. And I want to, really iterate. I still have to remind myself of this as well. I'm human. And sometimes life has a way of knocking me up to the back of my head. And I'm like, wait, what was that? And we just have to remember that when we find that joy, the money's going to naturally
Yes.
come,
And that's the biggest thing in
right?
all of this is there are folks who are far more profitable as a joyful solopreneur than a disillusioned leader of a 55-person company, right? Uh,
But see, I have no desire to have a 55-person company because that's not aligned
yes.
with my goals and my
Yes.
values and my desires. And if I was to guess, I could make millions and millions. And if I did that, I would be
Yeah.
miserable. And I probably wouldn't make as much because
Yes,
I'm
exactly.
miserable.
100%. And so not only is it the best way to live for the moment itself, it is also, when you look at it over any significant period of time, it is the fastest way to the thing that you're looking for, even from a financial perspective. I couldn't agree more.
Mhm.
And we have a tendency to kind of ask, especially about loved ones, what I would give, to have a day back with them. And the question really is, what would you give to get that moment right now? Right, like to take hold of the moments that are in front of you right now. So it's just a really helpful reminder. We all need to hear it again and again. We all struggle with it from time to time. But the more we can continue to build it in as a habit and practice in our life, the easier and easier and more natural it becomes.
Yeah, finding that joy with yourself and finding that joy, taking those quiet moments. I used to say, I can't sit quietly. I'm just a go, go, go. And now, because I'm making it a habit, I enjoy just sitting and just
Yeah.
being, right? And just whether that's listening to some meditation music and just sitting, or if it's sitting and reading, whatever that is, I actually enjoy doing that. And yes, I'm still a work in progress, not gonna lie. And it makes my life so much better. And, and I think that that's the big, huge thing. You have a free offer. Is this the it doesn't say what it is. It's the website, scalearchitects.com/founders.
Yes.
Can you tell my listeners about
Yeah,
that?
it's a free full copy of the book, digital copy that anyone can
Oh,
get free.
cool.
So anyone out there
Okay.
who is a founder, an entrepreneur, CEO, or married to one, has one in your life, it's just a really, really helpful guide to the journey that we all have to face. There are 7 distinct stages that we go through. Some of those are a little easier, some of those are a little bit harder. But every one of them is distinct from the others. And so it's just a real helpful, natural guide. It's like a GPS to your journey as a founder. And the biggest thing coming out of this conversation that I'd encourage is get a copy of the book, look at the end of each chapter. Right around the end, I actually outline the joy that's available in that stage. So if you want just a real practical, helpful, what can I be looking to take some joy in today? uh, Take the book, get an idea what stage you're in, and you'll get a real practical example of that from the book.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you again for being on my show. And my sassy listener, please go down. I'm going to download the book, y'all. Please go download the book. I think that there will be loads of information. And, we always need to be open and willing to learn more because we're never going to be through learning. And, I truly appreciate you being on my show. Thank you. And the one thing I want all of you listeners to take away from this is finding that joy now and making sure it's aligned with your values and your goals and your desires, your personal life and your business, okay? Both. And finding that joy in now so that you're enjoying the journey of what you're desiring your impact to be. And I think that that's just really, really gold right there. And it's something we all, including me, should remember. And as always, until next time, remember to stay sassy. Bye. Thanks for joining us this week on Cash and Sass. Check us out on social media and on our website at www.thesassywealthcoach.com, where you can download my free Money Story Start Guide. The website again is www.thesassywealthcoach.com. And as always, subscribe to the show to catch every new episode and leave us a review so we can continue to bring you fresh content. And remember, yes, it is possible to have sassy and sexy money. See you next week.